It's not only for me just about valuing experience to our employees and showing them that it matters how they talk to our customers, but it's also valuing how we engage with our vendors. It's valuing how we engage with our consultants. It's having pride in your culture and the relationships that you build.
Hi, I'm Melanie Barr. Welcome to the She Built It Experience with Melanie. Join me as I talk to women who have successfully built it, a career and business that they love. We dive into the topic of how they built it and talk about everything from having the courage to make career leaps to the details of how to lead effectively, create successful teams, implement strategies for growth, and infuse tech innovation. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. So let's dive in. Thank you for joining us, Jessica. As someone who loves a nice glass of wine and also likes to chat about all things business, this is going to be a fun conversation. You are the founder and CMO of Cameron Hughes Wines. Tell us about it and what led you to create your company.
I had always wanted to start something, but I was a little chicken to do it on my own. I had just moved from New York City to San Francisco and moved in with my boyfriend who became my husband. He came from a wine background. He grew up in Modesto, where Gallo is based, the wine group, the two largest wine suppliers in the United States, and had a really deep background in wine. And being from the East Coast, I was more into spirits. I was like, give me a cocktail. But he did such a really wonderful job educating me about wine. And I remember one day we went out to dinner and we had this wine, Bonnie Doon Big House Red. And I think it was $20 a bottle, which was a lot for us in 2001, 2002. And the wine was gross. It just was gross. It just tasted really bad. It was a real disappointment. And I looked at Cam and I'm like, there's got to be like an inefficiency in this business. This just isn't right. I'd come from the fashion industry. I'd come from the beauty industry. This is unacceptable in any other consumer goods industry to give you a product that's just horrible. He explained the nature of the business and how the supplier produces the wine and then it goes to the distributor, then goes to retailer. It doesn't cost a lot to make wine. It doesn't cost a lot to make really good wine. And I'm like, why aren't we doing this? Let's do this. He sold his wine collection. He's been collecting wines for a few years. And we literally launched a company selling wine out of the back of our Volvo. But I also came with a background in marketing. I launched Donna Karan. I did the relaunch of Elizabeth Arden from Red Door to really a true cosmetics line. I had a sense and an understanding of how to package and present to customers products. He was very fixated on selling to stores, and I was very fixated on selling wine online. And he's like, what? People are never going to buy wine online. Like, it's just never going to happen. And I'm like, okay, but what if it does? And if it does, don't we want to be ready? That's really how we started the business. He was selling wholesale. I was building out our site, selling to customers online. And we were doing that for a couple of years. And we actually had this really interesting opportunity come to our attention through Costco. And one thing that we did, the business model was predicated on this idea that in order to get great wine to a customer, wine that would blow their socks off at a price that they felt just like heartful happy, was that you need to work with suppliers who are already producing these wines, which means that we are not owning vineyards. We are not owning tasting rooms. We are not owning cellars. We are working with winemakers who produce a little bit of extra always when they are putting together their final blend, especially at the high end, because winemakers at the higher end look at winemaking as an art, right? They do 20 recipes to get to where they feel the wine is there. And what happens to the 5 ingredients that cost $3,000 an acre? Do you just throw that out? What do you do with that? And so that's really what we did. We disintermediated in many ways. We went directly to the winery owners, to the winemakers, to the wine cellar owners and said, hey, do you have some extra wine to sell to us? Doesn't matter if it's 30 gallons, 1,000 gallons, 5,000 gallons. We really love your style. And so it just bloomed out of that. Costco got wind of it and loved our program, which was every single wine is completely unique. Not a wine is the same. We sell a stag's leap cab from a sick producer. That was our centennial release last year for $25. A stag's leap cab does not sell under 100 right now. That's baseline. We have access to wines that have such pedigree and you can taste the difference. You don't have to be a wine aficionado. You can be like me, who's like very much a wine outsider, but you can taste good wine.
Oh, yeah.
Just that simple.
Yeah, from one sip.
One sip is really all you need. And then if you want to get into the whole pairing thing, we can go down that road. But that's how it started. And that's how the business exploded. And we were called the Warby Parker of wine because what happened was customers were buying wine at Costco, but we were limited we were only selling in California. And we also had a website that I had built that was transactional, and that business just went crazy.
It's so smart that you had that vision and that you were both building two different sides of the business.
We were totally.
And that had to come together so nicely when wine started to be sold more online.
It did. And in 2017, the company was acquired and sold to Vintage Wine Estates. And Vintage Wine Estates is, I think, like the 12th largest wine holding company in the US. And they happen to be very aggressive in the direct-to-consumer space. Now, direct-to-consumer in the wine industry means from visiting a tasting room, wine club, e-commerce, and then your digital native brands like Cameron Hughes Wine or Vanessa or our custom label brand, Windsor Vineyards. So their direct-to-consumer business, when they acquired us, it was like about 30 million. And last year, it was at 120 million.
And you are the Chief Growth and Experience Officer.
Yes.
So tell us about your role within Vintage Wine Estates.
I think you're going to get a kick out of this because you are a person who is curious and is also open to change, open to seeing things a little bit differently, because that is the journey we are all on. I was a trained marketer, and at Vintage, when they brought me in, they asked me to be their chief marketing officer. And I said, no, I want to be your chief digital officer. So I did that for a couple of years for them to help everybody understand who worked in direct to consumer that technology is part of your life, part of your engagement and interaction with customers, whether you're on the floor or you're in wine club or e-commerce. Technology should be enabling tighter and more meaningful relationships. And so that all did great. And during COVID, we were able to pivot really nicely with all the software we put into the tasting rooms, et cetera, from years before. After that, I said, you know what? I'm not really a chief digital officer in the truest of definitions, and I've outgrown this role. And I'm not really a chief marketing officer because I don't own the brand marketing programs that you have for your brands. The estate brands like Barr and Beyonce and Kunde, those brands have brand managers that live in wholesale. So I said, really, my job is to actually help the business in the direct hospitality side to envision growth. And growth comes through many different channels that could be facilitated digitally, but also physically, the physical to the digital. But most importantly, it is the experience that matters most in anything that we do as a business at all. And they're like, what does that mean? This is what it means. When you talk about your company, you have a person at the C-level who's focused on customer experience and is accountable for customer experience. Because you can have great marketing programs and have people come buy stuff, but if their experience sucks, it's over. And so I remember everybody was laughing at me at the title, and I'm just like, oh, I don't care. And now we're seeing a lot of companies bring on the experience title because it matters.
And wine is such an experience.
Totally.
And wine can make an experience more memorable or less memorable. You come together with friends for dinner or go to a concert or a show, and it's all an experience.
It truly is.
So why not focus on making that the best for customers? Because when it is the best, the customers are going to come back.
So I would say there's the outward facing. I always say to everyone, the reason your lights are on is because you have customers. Never forget that. Those lights don't stay on without the customers. And I remember also saying in the description, I have the most amazing boss. She's a powerhouse. When I was writing this position description to her, I said, it's not only for me just about valuing experience to our employees and showing them that it matters how they talk to our customers, but it's also valuing how we engage with our vendors. It's valuing how we engage with our consultants. It's having pride in your culture and the relationships that you build.
And when you have that within a business, it translates to the outside world.
It does. If you just have somebody from the top saying, this is what matters, and these are the kinds of programs that we're going to put in place, that helps growth. The wine industry is a bit archaic. It's been around for a long time. And my boss, who you have to meet, I want you to meet her. You would love her. Her name is Terry Wheatley. She was on the 50 over 50 Forbes list this year. She is amazing. And she's the kind of person who values culture, but she's also a marketer and she's a salesperson. And she's like, this is so goofy, but let's do this. Let's run with this. And to be surrounded by people like that is very important.
Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. What do you do to make sure that you find and live your joy each day?
It starts with saying hello to my girls and, of course, kissing my corgi, my crazy corgi. But really what it is that I love the work I do. I genuinely, especially as I'm transitioning more into a coaching role within an organization, I find so much joy and interest in that because I have a natural curiosity about people and to understand what makes them tick and help them achieve their goals. And so I wouldn't have said that like in my 30s or 40s. And especially now that I work mostly virtual, I go to the office sometimes, I find that my job really is to share wisdom.
Thank you for joining us today. Tell us how and where we can find you.
Sure. So you can find me first on LinkedIn. If you ever want to connect with me, Jessica Kogan. You can find my company, CH Wines, Cameron Hughes Wine, chwine.com, or you can check out the larger company that owns Cameron Hughes Wine, vintagewineestates.com.
Thank you for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at hello@shebuiltit.com on our She Built It website or at She Built It on social. Thank you to my editor, Rich Streffolino, who always makes us sound good. Until next time, let nothing stop you from experiencing the life and business that you crave.